lab. Responses engine 5, engine 3, engine 1, ladder 3, ladder 2, rescue 1. We've got smoke showing. Division 1, you're on location, box 23, reporting smoke show on 727.
Welcome to JobTlks podcast. Our goal is to facilitate knowledge sharing. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests on the show belong solely to the people expressing them. We do not represent the departments, cities, or towns we work for. Hey, guys.
All right, guys. Welcome back. Oh, sorry, Will.
You mother. Hey, guys. Welcome back. We are, I think, episode 16 in studio today. Back from our field trip in Munson. It was a good time.
It's a good time.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let's get right into it. Barry's got a good one for us.
All right, what's up, guys? So this is kind of a continuation of the previous series. So we're going to go down. We covered apparatus design and innovation, the engine company. Had some good conversations there. So we're going to continue that conversation with the ladder company, something I clearly have an immense amount of experience with. But so I did a little research for this one, so it's a good episode. I think there's a lot of good talking points to highlight. Just how much variability there is with ladder as much as there is with the engine or any other piece of apparatus that a town might be deciding. So I'm going to start with a little video to set the mood.
You don't think? I don't think you should be butting in when I'm talking to my team. You're my assistant, okay? You're supposed to back me up and go get me juice boxes when I tell you. Now go get me a juice box.
You know who you're talking to?
I'm talking to the juice box guy.
You're crazy.
I'm not crazy. I'm just thirsty.
Why don't you go to hell?
No, you go to hell. While you're there, why don't you grab me a juice box?
I'm no juice box boy, I'll tell you that.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No.
So I just wanted to start it off on a friendly note. Obviously, you always have the subtle rivalry between engine companies, ladder companies. And, so I thought that might be a funny way to start.
Well, it wasn't.
Well, thanks, Sean. Sean.
Direct your hate mail to
Barry.
Barry Paddock at
GoFuckYourself.com or JobTlks.com. I would love to get an email.
Oh, yeah.
I've never gotten one. I'm really excited.
We really tried hard to get hate mail in the beginning, but people just like us.
People just love us.
It's ridiculous. You guys are ridiculous.
Nothing. One day. But I did want to highlight something that happened recently on a more somber note. We do the weekly shout out, but I also, sometimes, unfortunately, in this line of work, we do have people that pass away. So I did want to remember the fallen. So recently, as many people may have heard, there was a line of duty death from the members of the new Tripoli Fire Department in Pennsylvania. It's a pretty incredible story and highlights, we talk about all sorts of different departments on the show and highlighting the work is the same, whether you work in a department of one person, two people, all volunteer, all career, or somewhere in between. The work is the same and the consequences are very much the same. So I wanted to highlight the line of duty death of Zachary Paris and Marvin Gruber of the New Tripoli, Pennsylvania Fire Department. Both firefighters were killed. Seems like we see this a lot after a rapid change in fire conditions while conducting a search with the reports of occupants trapped. Both were members of a volunteer department, took the time out of their own schedules to come in and serve their community. And I think that's something that's important to remember. And I have a video here from the state trooper that was in charge of the incident, and he does a really good job of highlighting the importance in the work of volunteer fire departments. So I thought that was worth sharing. So
it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic. And our hearts go out to these volunteer firefighters because you know what? When their tones drop, they go outside, they leave their house from doing whatever they were doing, and they come out here and they do this for free to protect all of us.
So obviously it's a snippet from a larger newsreel, but I thought that was a really good way of capturing that, like, in the vast majority of this country, these guys and gals are doing it for free. They're just members of the community, and the consequences are the same. And in this incident, they went in. There's reports of occupants trapped, and they did the job.
I'll give you the link to put in the video description, but there's a a good audio feed from the entire fire and listening to it. And I listened to it the other day, and it's just such a different world than what we're exposed to listening to not only just the difference in configuration of staffing, but the amount of different departments and things that respond to an incident like that, and tanker shuttles and the whole works. So I'll put that up. It's worth listening to. It has the Mayday in it, so you hear them call the Mayday, and it's just good to listen to. And I think the most important thing for any time there's a tragedy like this is to learn from it, so it's not in vain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well said.
So
Absolutely, and we wish their families and their colleagues the best in a difficult time. So. All right, so we'll dive into, like I said, this is a continuation of a previous episode. We talked about the engine company, so now we're going to talk about the ladder company. So hopefully someone with experience chimes in. So there's a lot that, when I was doing research for this episode, there's so much variability in every piece of apparatus design, but trucks really do bring a lot of unique characteristics to the table that, as much as it pains me to say it, can't be replicated by any other company. And they are necessary.
we just don't tell them to their face.
Fuck. But so we're going to throw all these pictures up, but I'm going to highlight some of the main components, and then we'll kind of talk about each one and kind of the individual capabilities that each of these bring to the table. So as you can see in the top left-hand corner, you have a traditional rear mount tower. It's actually one of the sickest trucks I've ever seen, just all black.
Yeah, it's cool.
Fucking badass.
Where's
black.
West Metro?
I think that's out in Colorado. They have South Metro, West Metro. So you have a traditional rear mount tower. We'll talk about some of the pros and cons of using a rear mount, whether that's a rear mount straight chick or rear mount tower. Then you have your mid mount tower, whether that's traditionally seen with a bucket. There's some definite advantages to having a mid mount, and you can kind of see some of the picture, which we'll talk about. One of them being it's a much lower profile. Then you have on the bottom left, you have a tiller, which gives you a lot of advantages as far as maneuverability in some tight communities. Some of the disadvantages we'll talk about, they're actually prohibitively expensive for some communities. And then you have probably the most common option, which is your rear mount straight stick. We'll talk pre-piped versus unpiped waterways, but that seems to be the most common. Single axle versus double axle. Sometimes you see quints, which I believe you guys are. Your former department had a quint. John, you guys just run a straight stick rear mount,
Straight stick rear mount.
Yeah. Is yours pre-piped?
Yes. Our reserve ladder was not pre-piped.
Interesting. So there's definite pros and cons to all of these, and we'll kind of dive into them. But there's some more highlighting the versatility of some of these. So in the top left, that is a mid-mount. And you can see them shooting the stick to the roof of an occupied structure at a structure fire. So you can see kind of the benefit, and we'll talk about some of the tactics that are associated with each, whether apparatus positioning as far as approaching that same position with a rear mount. So sometimes pulling, they always say pull past. I was taught as far as for the engine company, you should pull past and give the ladder company the front of the building. And doing kind of the research for the episode. They say that it's better for the ladder company, and if there's a subject matter expert on ladders, we'd love to hear from you. To pull past as well, just a hair past, so you can get exposure to three sides of the building and choose which way to shoot that stick. But you can see here one of the benefits of having a mid mount, right, is your angling. You can come in from an angle. So if you had a rear mount, for the viewers, we'll put these pictures up. If you were facing that same situation with the rear mount, trying to shoot that stick, you're going to be impeded by that telephone pole. So there's pros and cons to each system. In the top right, obviously another benefit of the mid mount, which seems to have the most variability, is you can go below grade. You can with certain aerial rear mount, but the versatility is really, the benefit is really there with having a mid mount, particularly a bucket. And I do have some videos that I'm going to share as well.
So I will say for a smaller department that doesn't have the staffing, when you show up on scene to get that ladder placed right? If you don't have a guy walking you in, standing at that turntable so he can see exactly where he wants to shoot it, having a mid-mount like that makes it easier as a single person or or if a two-person response for a ladder before someone gets out, just showing up and being able to kind of eyeball that because it's only 10 feet behind you as opposed to 60 or maybe 15 feet as opposed to 60. So it does give you kind of a better a better idea. That's kind of cool.
And it's easier in reading some of the literature. It's like, to the credit to what you said, it's much easier for the driver too, because they can kind of gauge that they know that the base of the tower is directly behind the cab.
Yeah.
So understanding like where they need to park.
Right.
Like you were saying.
Yeah.
And then the last piece, we had talked about it briefly before, but this is from a local community. So Manchester, New Hampshire. I live in Manchester. Really good department, very aggressive. They get a lot of work. But one thing that I always thought was cool is their tower ladder 3 is like the aerial scope, like Bronto style.
Oh,
yeah, and the snorkel.
Okay.
So I'll show you these pictures a little bit more in depth later on. But what I thought was really cool about this picture, and I have more detailed pictures, the ones from the bottom left. So there's 2 ladders operating at this incident. So it was a pretty significant fire. But I have a picture later on that provides a little bit more detail. You can see in the bottom left they have their rear mount, and then they have their tower ladder like aerial scope in play here. And they are shooting their bucket over the wires and then back down.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool because with any other aerial piece that wouldn't have been able to be accomplished over those wires.
Right. It's also an advantage when they're actually having to use their waterway. So for like defensive ops, instead of aiming a stream down into a structure, they can actually get below and aim up to the ceiling and get a little bit more coverage with water. Yeah.
But there's pros and cons of all these different systems, right? So if you see, you see in the bottom right, you can see just the pure versatility of having a platform like that can articulate midway through. And you do still have the ability for firefighters or members to kind of walk up the platform. But as the angle gets more aggressive, it gets prohibitive in what you can and can't do. So as far as like conducting a rescue off of an angle like that, where you'd have to physically have the bucket articulate back and out of the way versus like a straight stick or even like a tower, mid-mount tower, you can have occupants or other members come up and meet them and extricate them down without having to move the stick out of the way again. Mm-hmm. But like I said, there's pros and cons to each system, and each community has to, we'll dive into each community obviously has to make those decisions based on what's realistic for them. But there's so much versatility to these systems.
I've never seen those stabilizers in the front before.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
No, it's a really, really interesting truck.
Is there 3 on one side and then the stabilizer?
No, so you can see in the picture doesn't kind of do it justice. There's a total of 4. So there's 4 outriggers, yeah. But they can kind of do like those really like aggressive angles.
Oh, so the stabilizers, I wonder if that's for when you're going below grade. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting anyways. It's cool.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, very cool. And I'm not aware of many other, obviously we're a New England-based podcast, so if any other listeners are aware, I'm not aware of any other community, at least near us, that utilizes that same system. But every, like when you see pictures on like Instagram or you see kind of stuff on like the feeder of like Manchester operating at fires, like it's always in the thick of it. And it seems to be like, like this picture right here in the bottom left, like they're able to articulate over towers that otherwise would have been prohibitive to any other piece of ladder or any other piece of apparatus. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So, all right, let's keep going. So, why do ladders matter? In my opinion, good question. And it was painful to do this research, but it had to be done. All right, so in the modern fire service aerial apparatus, they're used for a variety of different applications. I came up with a list that extend well beyond the fire ground. Some of these benefits include, but not limited to, not having to take the stairs, getting wiffle balls down from roofs, taking great panoramic shots for social media, watching fireworks, conducting science experiments, and hanging Christmas tree lights at City Hall to justify your $1.5 million purchase.
Don't forget the like golf ball drop.
At the
town fair.
Yep, town fair. The egg drop.
Is that a physics?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's science in the name of science, right?
There you go.
So that was my list, and it turns out ladder companies do actually have benefits. Some of which include apparently general egress, enhanced access, rescue, ventilation, elevated streams, master stream, line extension, and the list goes on. That's kind of like the major applications they can be used for. Technical rescue. There's almost an infinite amount of applications. And one of the things that, like I said, that's good about a ladder company is like, we represent kind of an all hazards agency and all hazard response. And the ladder is, as it pains me to say, the ladder is a little bit more versatile in the capabilities it brings to the table versus an engine company in whether that's public engagement, getting that wiffle ball down, hanging lights, to technical rescue, victim access, water rescue. So there's a whole bunch of different applications that extend well beyond the fire ground. So I drew these cool pictures. Just kidding. I actually got this from an article from LA County, and they have a bunch of descriptions of like general purposes. So here, for the viewers, obviously, again, we'll throw these up, showing some of the applications for using a bucket, right? So there's the different ways that you can gain access or provide egress. And then at the bottom, it's kind of hard to see, but this is kind of the general principles of a ladder. So you have two telescoping components. You have your aerial ladderway and your waterway underneath. Some departments don't utilize a waterway. Recently, during our last event, Sean Donovan from Boston talked about that Boston doesn't use
No, they don't use
pre-piped waterways, just because it can kind of sometimes mitigate their ability to access certain things. So that's an individual choice, right? But some of the other components, right? So you have your operating controls at the top and sometimes, at the bottom and sometimes at the top, depending on what platform you have. You have your turntable structure, and then your torque box. And then at the top, you usually have some sort of master stream for the most part, unless you're Boston. But each, again, represents...
they still have master
streams.
streams.
They still have master
They
streams,
just bring them up.
Yeah, and there's pros and cons. So, like, what represents...
Well, they have the manning to do all that.
They do.
So I think one of the things when you talk about any apparatus design is kind of goes back to that all hazards thing. It's like you have to, or the community has to decide the budget, the staffing, the most likely scenarios it's going to be used, and then decide the features that they want in their apparatus, because you can't have an apparatus with everything, and you have to decide, or they have to decide, like what's going to fit and function for them.
Right.
The best.
100%. So it all comes back to, again, something we talk about on the show a lot is operational reality. So to my knowledge, Boston uses light or medium duty,
I think they use medium duty, non-pre-piped.
which represents
They're single axle.
Single axle, right? Yeah. So which represents Boston's unique operational reality. They're one of the oldest cities in the country, extremely tight for maneuvering. So they do have some tower companies, right? But in general, like having the ability to get like a double axle, like heavy duty aerial is not realistic for Boston for how tight the streets are. So having a truck that's more nimble, being able to shoot sticks from multiple angles. Boston has an awesome ladder culture. So that's kind of borne out in the apparatus that they buy. So everyone's culture kind of represents and bleeds into a representation of what type of apparatus they own.
Did you just say nimbly bimbly?
Nimbly bimbly.
I can assure you, sir, I did not say nimbly.
I can assure you, I did not say that. So when we talk about the fundamentals of ladder design, it's somewhat similar to kind of the overall fundamentals of like when a town or city buys apparatus, right? But one of the most important aspects of simplifying the ordering process, accelerating lead time, we live in a time where we're very limited fiscally on what people can afford. So sometimes, I'd argue for the vast majority of communities, if not all communities, purchasing a ladder represents a significant investment for that community and something that needs to last. So you need to be very thoughtful in the way that you design and build these apparatus to serve your unique community, right?
Anytime you talk to like a resident and they're like, how much does the truck cost? And $1 million, $1.5 million, dependent. And they're like, why? And then you have to be like, well,
explain.
This is why. These are the things we can do with it, and we need it. Or like Munson is they don't have a ladder because their operational reality is that they don't really have buildings over 3 stories. So they can't justify it in their budget, and rolling it out every time. And so it's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's a large, you hear about capital expenses. This is a large capital expense. And for many communities, these trucks have to last 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
To provide that benefit. And sometimes in these smaller communities, like that individual piece of aerial apparatus is like a regional resource.
Right.
So understanding, oftentimes we ask the same questions, whether you're scoping out any piece of apparatus, but what is the main mission of the truck, right? Is it a department workhorse, or will it predominantly use for specialized calls, for service, or, specific incidents? So is this like a true like urban truck company that's going out taking in, 10, 15 runs a day, or is this more of a rural or, suburban community where they might not be rolling out even once a week, or, are they operating with a quint where they're trying to maximize the effectiveness of their apparatus and they're, they have to combine both, where they're like, hey, like a community might be like, we can't afford to buy a new fire engine and to buy a ladder. So like guys and gals have to get creative with the way like, hey, we'll get a Quint. And then instead of, buying a new engine and a new ladder, like we'll combine those. We might lose a piece of apparatus, but we gain a little bit of capability where it might not always have it. And that's tough, really tough right now, right? When you think about like,
It's tough because that becomes a manning issue
Yeah,
where a lot of people try to avoid Quints because they call them
Staffing
Staffing
killers.
killers, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Killers, yeah. That's one of the
Why
big
is that?
reasons. Like,
Because for a Quint to really be effective, you need 5 people on a Quint.
interesting.
But the management can say, oh, we have this piece that can do either one.
and so we don't need
we
X,
don't
Y,
need-
Z or more people.
Yeah, we don't need 2 people to staff a
Right.
ladder and 2 people to staff an engine. We have this thing that can do both with those same 2 people. And in effect,
Right.
you can do one or the other. And that's where I will say, like, having a Quint in my old department, that's where it did come in, is like, it wasn't that you could do both, but it was that you could do one or the other. So you could take it and decide if you needed to throw the stick or if you needed to go into suppression, and you could do one or the other, but you really can't do both unless you put the right amount of people on it.
And I have heard of departments that refuse to use their Quint as like an engine. They
Right.
just used it as a ladder. They didn't even put hoses on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, it was just their way of being like, thanks for this ladder.
Right.
We're not, you know what I mean? We're
Right.
not, I don't know how long that would last because obviously
yeah,
your
people pay,
town-
the
your town
townspeople are paying
manager
for
or your town,
Yeah.
a certain
whatever,
resource.
they're going to come up with a plan to,
Do any communities around you, John, that you know of use Quints?
I'm sure there are. I don't know.
It's
honestly.
almost like
None of my direct, like anybody that abuts Stoughton, no, I can tell you that they don't.
right.
But I don't know about.
I think when
beyond
you
that.
start getting into suburban departments, they start a little bit more. And it's kind of similar, and like not to get too much into like department politics and stuff, but when they use like ambulances as manning, like, oh, we'll put on 2 more people for an ambulance, but in that ambulance is out of town more than it's in town, so you don't actually reap the benefit of having the extra manning all the time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just and it is what it is. They have to play those games, but for Quints, that's
You have to make the
for
numbers.
same
You have
thing
to make
too.
the numbers work.
Yeah,
So, just
And
like Barry
for-
said, coming up with creative ways to
exactly.
make all this stuff happen.
For a lot of departments, like the one we just visited, like your numbers are your numbers, and you have to
Do what you got to
do
do.
what you got to do with what you got.
Right.
So again, right? What is the main mission? What is the mission of the truck? And then from there, you build everything. Everything goes from there, right? And we touched upon this a little bit, right? But current fleet needs and demands. Is this the sole aerial apparatus for that community, or does it complement a fleet? So that can lead to a completely different apparatus design. If this is the sole piece of aerial apparatus that we have, we talked about Quints, right? It's kind of cool. It's always good to bounce ideas off each other, because I had never heard of like the Manning killer thing.
Yeah.
Quint. I think I'm like, oh, that's like convenient, brings a lot to the table. But yeah. But if it's the sole piece, and you're like a smaller community, like maybe that makes sense. Versus if you're in a larger department, this is merely, one ladder truck for a district that's filling out a complement, where like maybe you can start to get into specialized pieces of equipment. Like, for example, in Cambridge, you have 4 rear mount pre-piped waterways, and then we have 1 specialized mid-mount tower ladder, right? So you can get into providing like a specialized capability to complement your outfit. And that comes from, I say fortunate, but you can be a little bit more mindful and intentional in the way that you're building your fleet, because you already have the baseline capability. And now you can be like, okay, like what types of different apparatus?
What else can we?
Yeah,
do?
what else can we bring to the table? And then again, service area and geographic requirements, right? We touched on this, urban, suburban, rural. And a lot of times it comes down to the civil engineering of the city when it was built, right? Are you in, New England, where towns were originally cart paths and they're very narrow? Or you ain't going to get away with like a dual axle, like rear mount tower,
Or do you have a section of your town or city that's over a bridge that can't handle the
physically
weight
can't get
of
there.
Yeah, that's true.
In my old town, we had a covered bridge lane or whatever it was, and you couldn't take the ladder over it. It didn't support the weight.
So what do you do? Like, can someone come from the other side?
No, I think it was just ground. It was all
It's
residential
just
stuff,
accepted a reality.
accepted reality.
When you open up the back of the engine, there's these things called ladders in there, and you have to take them out and then put them up by hand.
Wait, you have to with your own hands?
With your own hands. Got to put the ladders up.
Oh wow,
What?
Yeah.
lame.
Yeah.
Stupid. Stupid.
So stupid. Until you're burning up on a third floor. Then they're pretty nice.
We threw ladders in the academy, but I thought it was just like one of those, like, oh, we
in
just
case you
haven't-
go to a ladder company.
No, I just thought it was one of those like, hey, we just haven't phased it out yet. It was like one of those nostalgia things.
Yeah.
I just throw ladders.
I do want to say, because there's gonna be somebody that thinks we're being serious.
No, we actually do know how to throw
We know
ladders.
how to throw ladders.
So.
I mean, not well, but
Yeah.
we know how to do it.
But
Struggle through it.
yeah.
It'll get there.
Anyways, all right. But single versus double axle, quint versus true aerial apparatus. So if we jet back to some of the, I gotta go this way. Science. So what makes sense for one community might not make sense for another. So having those larger apparatus like the tall, the one on the top left. Where you have a substantial weight, so that's actually a dual axle rear mount tower. That's a significantly large piece of apparatus, and you also have to think of whether that's going to fit in your station.
Heard about that a time or two.
Yeah,
And that's New England. That's another
Yeah.
New England crux is, well, we bought the truck.
Yeah.
Now we just have to figure out how we're going to get it in the door.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I worked at headquarters or at Lafayette, their clearance is inches.
So
not much.
for us specifically, we actually had to change the design of the truck. So if you look at the like the, I don't know what they call the coffins, but like the profile near the ladder, generally it comes straight up. It makes a square.
Yeah.
If you look at some of our trucks, they actually cut that to a 45 to be able to get. So we in Cambridge we have very old stations, some from the 1800s, and they're historical, and the archways are small. So they had to cut the angles so that we could get them in.
Yeah.
And obviously the good thing is that we have pretty good apparatus mechanics, and they thought of that beforehand.
Yeah, no, very, very tight. Which, I'm an advocate for outing myself on the show consistently because you got to be honest. So in the last 5 years, East Cambridge is a horrible place to start because it's like very forgiving. There's so much room.
Yeah.
John, I don't know if I told you this, but anyway, so I've never hit anything, never parted a blade of grass in the wrong direction. I would stop and let squirrels cross. Like I was a good guy.
And they put
Not
him on
my
they put him on the smallest truck in the
my name
department.
was not tarnished, so I transferred to the squad, and which is like a Ford F550.
Yeah.
And my third shift, I rearranged the mirror.
Yeah, that's all right.
So
But
I came
drew,
I came in the next shift and I said, you know what, new mirror, new me. So yeah,
I drew first blood on our brand new engine.
yeah. Like
So I backed it in with a spotter, mind you, and one of the doors either popped open or it was open the whole time, and then as I went back, it crunched the door like forward into the cab, and so we couldn't use that door for like 3 months.
Nice.
until we could send it back to the place that was going to fix it. So
I mean,
It happens.
It's gonna happen.
happens.
Fortunately, everyone in Lafayette is extremely forgiving.
Yeah.
Real
Yeah,
forgiving
real
firehouse.
forgiving crews, and they encourage you to.
They
do
won't be
better.
talking about
No,
it 6 years
definitely
from now.
The important thing is to get ahead of it.
Right.
Our friend,
Your friend Schmave Schmones
yeah,
did that up at Porter Square as well. It doesn't help, to be fair, though, that the firehouses are not like perpendicular to the streets; they're slightly angled. So you think you have to come in and then turn again.
follow the
kinda
lines.
tough.
It sounded way worse than it actually was.
Yeah,
So
our
lot of crunching.
archway for our door still doesn't look great.
and I thought I was gonna get away with it. For the most, I thought only 2 groups were gonna know about it, and then our mechanic, God bless him, Danny, if you're listening, thanks. Sent the bill to the entire Squad 2 group so everyone could see how much it cost.
what was it, like a $1,200 mirror?
It was up there. It was like 900 and some change. Yeah. But, way to out me to everyone.
Well, listen,
But,
if it wasn't for you, he wouldn't have a job.
No. Yeah, I'm contributing.
Yeah.
I'm contributing.
Might even got some overtime out of it.
Might even have got some overtime out of it.
So, anyways, so like just looking at these different pieces. So we're talking about kind of the limitations of structures themselves, right? So that's actually the top right is a mid-mount quint. But if you look at it, the turntable sits much lower. So that oftentimes is more advantageous for departments with physical limitations, right? So where your physical profile sits much lower in comparison to like a rear mount or even potentially like a tiller. You have a little bit more leeway and sometimes also in the overall length. But you're also giving up like that tower or the rear mount straight stick. You're looking at like anywhere from 105 to 107. I think they might even be longer than that now.
I think that's pretty close to.
Yeah. So I know Pierce like right now has like their Ascendant series is like 107 feet, where their maximum for like a mid mount like tower is 95.
Right.
So it's a give and take, right? So like, do you need that extra 20 some odd feet, or is 95 more than sufficient for your community?
That's 12 feet. Difference.
Whatever. Math. Yeah. 12. Do you need that extra 12 feet? Or I guess it really doesn't matter if you have 107 and it doesn't fit in the station, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
Versus tillers, which are really cool, which will kind of highlight some of the versatility of tillers a little bit.
We had a shorty stick when I first got hired in Wayland. It was a 75-foot stick on a quint.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, 75 feet's still high.
But the thing is, it's not necessarily the height; it's the distance.
I was gonna say, so if for whatever reason, if you had to pull straight into something, you're overcoming
50 feet of
truck, and now what do you have for reach, especially when you
Exactly.
go up at the angle because of the
Exactly.
hypotenuse?
Yeah.
Something like that. I don't know.
Hypotenuse.
You know, let's get Neil deGrasse Tyson in here and explain this stuff.
Neil, you
The
trifling
physics of
acid.
it.
Yeah.
Well, in this plane,
Yeah,
I
so
did
you're limited
actually
by that,
did
yeah.
make the building.
Right.
Well, what happened was,
Well, if you Schrodinger's cat, really going off the rails here,
in
guys.
in this plane, I actually did ladder the building perfectly. Some might say.
In a word- in an
Trifling ass.
in infinite universe, there's infinite possibilities.
Infinite possibilities.
Which means I did this right once.
Yeah, I did this right once.
Yeah.
And then we talked about, other fundamentals of design, right? We talked about the service area and geographic requirements. You have to be aware of that. And then the budgetary and infrastructure constraints we talked about, right? Are there physical or fiscal limitations which must be factored into apparatus?
And the thing is, like, these are not changeable things, which is why you have to change the truck, right?
Yep.
You can't change the layout of your city.
Nope.
You can't change what the truck is going to be used. I mean, you could to a certain extent, but you can't change necessarily the budget, at least not easily.
Nope.
So you have to make the changes to the apparatus to fit those. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Unless you got a lot of money, then you can't change your station. So we're going to talk about understanding some unique capabilities. So we have some videos here for our audio-based listeners. I'll kind of highlight each one as we go along. But this kind of highlights and understanding kind of the unique capabilities of one of each platform, but in general, the unique capabilities beyond just strictly operating on a fire scene that an engine can provide you. So the one on the left, which is a video, which I'll show you, this is a rear mount aerial that they used during the flooding out west this summer to provide a escapable pathway for people that were kind of in a swift water rescue scenario. So I'll start with that one.
Can you make these full screen?
No, because they're originally from my phone. But you can see, right? So they have kind of almost looks like a low head dam scenario.
That is definitely a low head dam scenario.
But they're able to extricate people from across what otherwise might be like a swift water rescue. They were able to go across the entire waterway to extricate people from the kind of precarious situation they were in and bring them to safety. So pretty cool. This one came out recently. This is an actual aerial scope. Do you know where this is from? I know
I can't remember, but you can play it. But so I listened to this, I think driving to the studio a month or two ago. I don't know if it was National Fire Radio or who it was, but this was a wild rescue. It's like, I think it's like, obviously you can see it's snowing, But the chief was talking about this, and he said that it was like there was 2 people in a truck went in, the woman got out, they were trying to get the guy, and I don't know if he's hypothermic, I don't remember exactly. There's firefighters in the water, and they're trying to smash that back window with either an axe or a Halligan, and obviously, in the water you don't get that momentum, and they're trying, and the truck, like, he said it was like a movie. He said it was like the truck literally like submerged, window got broke, hand went in and like retrieved the dude from underwater. Like absolute last possible second they got that guy out. And it was near here. I don't remember what community.
I wonder what I know these aren't designed for it, and obviously it changes as you put the stick out, but I wonder what like the lifting capacity is. It can't be a lot. But even just to like stabilize a vehicle in water like that, I wonder what I mean?
I don't know,
where it
'cause
takes a lot of the weight off if you could just like hook it.
But the forces of you think I don't want to quote the exact thing, but water moving at 5 miles an hour is like 12 psi. So water pushing on a vehicle.
Oh yeah, but
what I mean?
Was that video? Was the water moving? It looked like it was still water.
Almost like a lake.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, that'd be a ton of weight.
Oh yeah. No.
So
I know.
you have,
But that's what I mean. Not even to lift it, just to stabilize it. I wonder.
Yeah.
and you have some of the terms we'll talk about a little bit later in the show. But you have like a tip load. You have your live load, your dead load. So my understanding. So for us in Cambridge, like our tip load is like 750 pounds, and that's for like our newest piece of apparatus, and that gives us a little bit of leeway.
Yeah.
But is that straight out is the lowest?
So I'm
load?
not sure like I don't know geometry or whatever of like what angle like that tip load will change, but I know like in reference to like technical rescue, like what load you can have a tip. But they also have those. They have like the sacrificial tips, which we'll talk a little bit about.
Yeah.
Sacrificial, like for those that don't understand, like, or not that you don't understand, like don't. So sacrificial tip is that like oftentimes they're a different color, and it's on a bracket system, so it can pop off. So you're not supposed to utilize the sacrificial tip as part of your tech rescue load bearing system.
Got it.
Yeah, usually as you raise the stick, the tip load obviously becomes heavier because the weight is transferred more directly to the ground instead of to the like welds and structure of the ladder.
Yeah, when you're straight up and down, you have that like 1-to-1 ratio, so it's obviously stronger.
And
that's a good question though, John. I wonder if you could. My initial thought is that if that thing if you were holding it and it filled with water and started sinking, it would be enough to start bending break the ladder. But it's a good question. I don't know. Be interesting. Yeah.
Or if that would be enough, like just to slow the process.
That's what I mean.
down
It just to stabilize it. You know what I mean? Keep it from,
I think if it wasn't like, if it was like a vehicle like stuck in its position, maybe. But if it was like a vehicle in 20 feet of water and had the ability to continue
you're looking
seeking,
at 5,000
now
pounds.
you're pulling
Still
a
lifting,
shitload of load. Yeah, even holding it is still lift. You're still adding weight to that.
Because the average sedan is what, like 5,000 pounds?
Yeah,
little less,
plus water.
Plus water, yeah.
The water,
It's the variable there.
But at that point, does the water even add to
Like
it? If
buoyancy,
it's like once the water's completely through it, does it even add to it, or is it just existing around it? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Interesting.
Because it's not like a bucket with water in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would be if you had to lift it,
Yeah.
but just to stabilize it, I don't think it would make it any heavier.
All right. Call Neil.
Guys,
We're keeping this object stationary in time and space.
Right.
we're getting too deep, guys. Also, the other thing is, now, especially in a situation like this where you have like rescuers in the water and stuff, I know it's kind of like a tough thing, but does anybody like have any winches on there? Imagine if you had like a winch on the side of your ladder.
You just
our
rescue has winches.
The rescue has to, right? Yeah.
So I know
heavy
our
rescue and
rescue has. I don't want to say for sure. I think they have 3. I think I think they have maybe even 4. Back.
I know that
or they have spots that they can put winches. So they have like a winch on like a tow hitch, and they can put it in the different posts around the vehicle to winch from different sides.
Right. That's cool.
I know this to be true.
And then a main winch in the rear that's much bigger.
I know this to be true because I may or may not have once been involved with Engine 3 getting stuck in the mud in the rescue. Had to come up and use the rear wrench and pull us out.
Yeah,
nice.
I think the rear winch is the big one, and then they have a smaller winch that they can put into the that's for us, but I don't. Somebody that utilizes their ladder for different reasons might have something like that too. I don't know.
If anybody has any answers to any of these questions besides
we're getting
Neil
into it.
deGrasse Tyson, please.
You know what this is 3 non-ladder guys.
yeah, trying to explain science and physics. And then this picture on the far right demonstrates, again, a unique capability of utilizing.
I just want to say I did work on the ladder in a swap 2 days ago, so no big deal.
Yeah, it's true. I was there.
It's true.
I was there.
Delivered a lot of toys.
That's good.
I was there for that. Otherwise, they didn't do much.
Typical.
But the last picture here on the right kind of highlights, again, another unique capability that you can be called for, which is to assist in a technical rescue incident, to provide like a high point anchor in an incident where you otherwise might not have another way of moving or removing the victim from the ideation environment or whatever environment they're currently in, right? So this shows utilizing a rear mount straight stick on the, again, we're talking about tip load, but utilizing that as the high point to remove someone from an industrial accident on a construction site, which is something that happens more often than you think.
We've used our tower has a system designed for that. It has brackets that go on with pins, and it's made to hoist.
That's cool.
A Stokes or whatever. Because something like that, you could set up a Arizona Vortex or whatever to make that. But if you can just shoot the stick there and it's up
we
in,
have that on the front
30
of our
seconds
stick too.
Yeah,
You just put the bar in with the
exactly.
And then it has the little triangle welded on it, so you can just clip your carabiner to it and put it up to the Stokes basket.
And it's beneficial in the sense that you could use that to either just be the sole high point to where you're just simply using that to gain the mechanical advantage, or you can actually use that to lift the entire system and just lift the patient out of the environment.
Right out of it. Yeah.
So they provide a lot of versatility. So here's the pictures. So these are from Sean Fesco. This is Manchester. So this is kind of providing a little bit more insight into I thought these pictures were really cool in the sense that it really demonstrates the versatility of that specific platform, to where you can see you have their rear mount aerial shooting the stick, as well as their I think it's official term is a brontoscope.
I think that's a brand. I think it's a snorkel, right?
Snorkel, yeah. But you can see like they're able to. There's pros and cons of both systems, and you can see them in real time, to where like if you had people trapped and you needed to immediately remove them from the roof, maybe having a straight stick where they can walk down that with the assistance of a member is much quicker than having like the what was it called again? Sorry.
I think people say aerial scope or a snorkel.
Aerial scope or snorkel, right? To where they can shoot over the wires in a way that another truck cannot. They can provide a master stream. They could actually physically go up to a window and have someone enter the bucket. But if you can see, there's kind of a partition in their actual physical ladderway. So actually removing someone without physically articulating the bucket or aerial is much more limited in the sense that someone versus sending members directly up that. So if you needed more tools, and again, if someone's on Manchester that has direct experience with this, we'd love to hear from you. It seems like a really unique and cool piece of apparatus. That has some pretty cool applications. So if there's anyone out there that wants to.
I think one of the best things about a platform is just being able to work off of it. Like, especially if you have a sketchy roof, like you see videos of the guys are literally sitting down on it and cutting, below them and never actually having to place your own weight onto a roof, which is a pretty huge advantage.
Yeah.
Especially like New England in the winter. And like this looks like a flat roof. I know like a lot of talk about New York, all they do is cut flat roofs. But like for our district, we have a lot of peaked roofs, and in the winter, that's a dangerous game to play. So being able to for us having a tower to be able to do that is awesome.
Yeah. So again, there's pros and cons. Like I'd imagine that the tip load capability of like that rear mount aerial is significantly higher than utilizing that boom system, where if you can at all. So very interesting piece of apparatus. So it's all about understanding those unique capabilities, right? So here's a video. This is from a tiller training program. They have their whole own video suites from tractordrawnaerial.com. We'll link them in our description. But they have this really cool video suite that kind of highlights the last piece of the puzzle, which I had wanted to bring up, which is the tiller, right? So you have or a tractor-drawn aerial, which is where you have the main body of the cab followed by literally like a tractor-drawn ladder component. to where they can completely articulate the wheels. So you have your driver, and then you have your tiller operator. You see these a lot out west, down south, and you see them in some communities up north.
Somerville.
Somerville. I think
Everett
Everett has one.
New Bedford has
New
one.
Bedford, yeah.
They're talk about great for tight roads. Like some of the demonstrations for these are like coming in and turning a 360 on the apron. It's just
No, they're very cool.
but they're manpower intensive. You
Very
have to have
manpower
somebody
intensive.
that's
They're
trained to do it.
Budget wise, they're price prohibitive. I mean, ladders to begin with are price prohibitive, but again, you have to have. It's not like you can just detail someone to a tiller, right? And you have
specialized
to have
training.
specialized training, specialized tiller operators. But again, the flip side of that component is you have access and capability that other pieces of apparatus simply do not.
There's that. I'm guessing you don't have it in here, but there's that one video that I've seen a million people share it all the time of the tiller going down the highway,
road.
and the tiller just swings over and has all 3 lanes of the road blocked.
You know what?
It's
When they
just
block
beautiful.
highways for like processions and stuff, that's what they should do it with.
Oh my god, absolutely.
That's what they should have like falling up the rear.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be sick.
But taking a tiller out of service, I mean, who's gonna take a tiller out of service for like a 30-mile jaunt? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
I
kind
mean,
of
I guess
a lot.
who it's for, what it's for.
Yeah, size of the department,
Yeah.
and like out at LA City, LA County, like they have a lot,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they place a lot of emphasis on their ladder culture and their tiller culture. So here's a couple videos. Again, this is from tractordrawnaerial.com. They have a whole video suite. I encourage you to check out their website. It's very interesting. But a couple of short, quick videos. We'll throw these up for our audio-based listeners. But as a general description for our audio-based listeners, you have a very tight turn. You have a dual-axle rear mount tower, which is kind of as unmaneuverable as it gets.
Yeah.
Trying to take a pretty sharp turn. So this is the aerial platform versus the tractor drawn aerial.
You were talking about the tiller, and I was looking at that thing the whole time, like, where the hell's the tiller on that?
No,
I got you now.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much. It doesn't get much bigger than like a dual axle rear mount tower. I mean, that's about as big as it gets.
Do they have counter steering?
Not on this one.
Does that mean that makes a huge difference too?
It does make a huge difference.
Yeah. Look at the front of that tower.
Yeah. And that's one of the other, when we talk about pros and cons, the limited visibility of having a tower that projects over the front of your vehicle versus having like a mid-mount rear facing.
Right. Never even thought of that.
You're losing some situational awareness there.
Right.
Like in some instances, if you don't have someone getting out to spot you, you might not know that you're close to hitting a building with the front of that tower. Right. I wonder if they're
Plus, where's Barry going to do pull-ups?
Yeah, off the front. Hope someone moves the trash can.
I hope they just run it over.
Yeah. But I mean, imagine like the pressure's on, like the fire's right around the corner, and
it's that house
that
you're facing, and you're having to
figure it
do
out.
this, yeah.
And you're under wires here. You know what I mean?
And you think, oh, just drive forward on the lawn, but that's a ditch.
Yeah.
You know.
So something like this wouldn't make a lot of sense in Boston or Cambridge, or you're just simply not making. You're not making it.
Didn't Nardelli say when they pull up, the way that they pull up is they pull and drop a guy, and that guy walks him back every single time?
That's what I was getting at earlier when I was saying, when you have like a straight stick, or depending on what you have, you're limited to what you can do. So when you have that mid-mount rear-facing tower, you have a better idea
of where you're stopping,
of where your turntable is.
So these guys just shoot it first try. And the crazy thing is, a lot of times you can have pretty substantially long ladder. I mean, that truck is significantly longer.
Yeah.
And it takes it no problem.
Pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So the next one, I think, does a really good job of highlighting just how maneuverable these things are. So this is
basically just a pitch for us to get
yes.
To get
So this is literally an alleyway.
And I do want to say that the apparatus make a huge difference in this, but also training like this makes a huge difference.
Because you're just not fitting anything else down here. If
I mean,
this was not a tiller, you're not making it.
I will say, like, if you watch Boston puts trucks in some tight alleys like this too.
Love the music.
This is like a what would Yager listen to playlist right here.
This actually didn't have music in the background.
Yeah.
Barry added it.
Yeah. Just feel like I want to. Yeah, dude, that's wild.
It's sexual and provocative.
It's provocative. It gets the people going.
People going.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it, guys. So I had wanted to just, get the conversation going regarding, we'll probably continue this series as we have some more subject matter experts from the rescue, both county and career like single community heavy rescue coming in. But it's again just to keep that conversation going regarding like the raw versatility of all these platforms, right? People just think that I'm just going to buy an engine and like an engine's an engine, or I'm just going to buy a ladder and a ladder's a ladder. But just like the raw versatility of these platforms and understanding like how much it is very community specific based on individual need and demands based everything down from, like how big your stations are to the civil engineering to the part of the country you're in. To the weather and demands of your system, and sometimes like the demand, like you might spec out a ladder or a truck based on what's going on in an adjacent community if they have a huge like petrochemical plant or something.
And I think like it'd be nice in the future we get a ladder guy in to talk about working operations on those different things. Like this one,
Wes, we know you're out there.
Like this is the idea. This isn't to talk
days.
about ladder ops, but like you said, like design and considerations for like what you have, and then I think it'd be good if we can find somebody to come in and talk about actually working off of those different pieces.
We're far from. I'm probably the polar opposite of a subject matter expert on ladders, but it was interesting doing the research. And again, we're here to just facilitate conversations on what the opportunities are. So we appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'll turn it over to my esteemed colleagues to take us out.
Thank you guys for tuning in today. We appreciate it. We hope your holidays were great. Thanks for coming back. We are almost at the end of season 2. So a couple more episodes coming down the pipe, and then we're going to end season 2, take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we're going to change things up just a little bit. We're going to focus a little bit more on being guest heavy. We're going to be visiting some firehouses and doing some different stuff. So we hope that you join us in season 3. Thanks for being here. Like, subscribe.
And JobTlks out.